looking back through the pages of my life. So young, so restless.
Hey, good to see you. I'm Merritt Jones, and I want to thank you and your spiritual community for allowing me to be part of your lives today. The very first question that I asked of you, and I always ask this question when I first present with any group, even when I've been with them a number of times, and if I have, you know the question. How are you breathing right now? How are you breathing? The reason I ask this, and I invite you to consider it, is that your breath is what tethers you to the present moment. And when you breathe consciously, it tethers you to the present moment where you're open to experiencing what life has to offer. Life is always waiting for us to show up in the present moment where it's waiting to bestow us with its gifts. So I say to you right now, breathe and welcome to the present moment. This morning, let's get to the party. I'm going to be speaking to you on a topic that I love. It's based on my book, The Art of Uncertainty, How to Live in the Mystery of Life and Love It. And if you consider it, life has been uncertain from the day we got here, and it will be until the day we leave. It's a mystery. And even more so, if you think about it, we come from the ultimate mystery. Who knows where we came from? Who knows? But our soul essence lands in these garments of flesh and bone for a period of years, and then when it's ready to go on to what's next, it ejects and goes back into the ethers from which it came. These bodies are nothing more than carbon-based, biodegradable, disposable vessels that we use on a temporary basis. What's not mysterious about that? But what's equally mysterious is that from the time we get here until the time we leave, from that very first breath we take until the last one, life is equally uncertain. And yet we go on pretending that it's not until something pops up in front of us, like an epidemic or a pandemic, that causes us to really come to the edge of our beliefs and question what's next. We live in great uncertainty. And I want to talk about that today because I think I can give you some tools that help you learn how to live more fully in that presence of uncertainty and live with it in a proactive way. So the question isn't, is life uncertain? It always has been and always will be. Our relationships, nobody knows what's next, what's going on the planet, nobody knows what's next. So the question is, how do we make peace with uncertainty? How do we come to the edge of our uncertainties and learn to live in a proactive way rather than a reactive and fearful way? What if you could take your uncertainties, and this is a question I invite you to consider, and look through the new eyes, the new perception, and see life as a mystery. See life as literally as a mystery rather than an uncertainty. There's really big differences. The word mystery comes from the root word mystique or mystery, which invites the question: is it possible that you could begin to see life through the eyes of a mystic? A mystic. What is a mystic? A mystic is someone who's clearly spiritualized their life, and they live in a place where they're so aware of that presence within them that goes beyond the veil of the five senses, that person, he or she, can listen to and lean into and allow to guide their lives. And that's what a mystic is, And here's the reality: we're all mystics. Can I get a witness for that? We're all mystics. That's the good news. The other news is some of us are optimistics, yeah, and some of us are pessimistics. And the question is, which of those camps do you set up in? Are you an optimist or a pessimist? And the reality is, the biggest question is, if you were standing on the edge of the unknown, which you are, we all are, would you rather be standing on the edge holding the hand of an optimist or a pessimist? The pessimist is saying, oh my God, don't look down, don't lean over, don't go forward. You could lose everything. And what is the optimist saying? Look up, look up. Trust and know there's something within you that knows how to get you to what is next. That's what an optimist says. And the reality is we're all born optimists. And yet somewhere in our early years, we're trained to become pessimists. We're trained to define our lives by fear rather than optimism. To consider this, children, when they're very young, they're brave, they're courageous until as they grow, we reel them in. We set boundaries up for them out of our own love and care and concern for them. But nonetheless, we set boundaries for them that define their lives, and we teach them to live within the construct of those boundaries, and they'll be safe. Everything will be fine. Don't color outside those lines because it's dangerous out there. And so what happens is, after a while, we go back and forth in that pattern, that mindset of staying within the boundaries of what is, and don't ever venture to the unknown, that we begin to go back and forth in that mindset, and we build a rut. And that rut goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And pretty soon, you're in a rut and you can't see out of it. And what is a rut? We all know that. A rut is a grave with no ends on it. And it's said that we get out of the rut one of two ways, either through inspiration or desperation. Inspiration lifts us up, and desperation pushes us out. And one is the inspiration moves through love and trust and faith, and desperation is through fear and doubt. And so the question is, which of those do you want to let guide your life? If you want to see a good example of how to do it, look to nature. Nature has one of the most beautiful examples in the world, and it's in the form of birds. I had, this is a true story, it's actually in the book. One year while living in California, my house was nestled up in the foothills, and we had a lot of critters around. And every spring, the same family of sparrows would come and build and rebuild the nest under the patio awning in the backyard, which every year they did the same thing. And one year we had a bay window in the kitchen so we could watch these birds doing their thing without disturbing them. And I was so blessed one morning to be there, standing at the kitchen window watching, when the chicks that were hatched decided it was time to leave the nest. And so there was 4 chicks on the nest. The first one comes out of the nest, walks up to the edge of the awning. It's about a 10-foot drop, and he looks down. And he looks back up, and his eyes go like this, And I don't speak birdese, but if I did, I think he'd be saying, "Holy bananas, that's a long way down. I could lose everything," And yet, something within him caused him to flap his wings, truly. And he leaned over and lost his balance, I think intentionally, and fell into the call of gravity. And he flew. He flew around the patio one time and went out into the avocado orchard and lit on the branch of an avocado tree. And there he sat chirping. The second chick came out and did the exact same thing. Third chick did the same thing. Fourth chick came out to the edge, flapped his wings, looked down, looked up again, and went and jumped back in the nest. He wasn't too excited about that. It remind you of any of our children. So the young chick sat there in this nest for 5 minutes, and his siblings were out in the orchard chirping away, having a good time. And I think they were probably, in bird language, encouraging their little sibling to come to the edge and lean over and jump, which he did. He just jumped out of the nest, literally went to the edge and sprang over and began to flap his wings. Didn't even look down. He just flapped his wings. Of course, he flew and went out to the avocado orchard and landed on the tree branch with his other siblings. And they sat there for a minute, chirping away and doing the little birdie high fives. They had just accomplished something quite amazing for them. They had totally broken bonds with their limitations. It came to a whole another level of life. And then they literally took off together from that tree, flew one big victory lap around the orchard, and were off into the ethers to explore their birdness. And I thought to myself, man, that is really a profound lesson. The awareness I had was this, that not once did I see the mother bird or the father bird on the edge with the little chick saying, "Okay, honey, flap your wings, lean over, trust, know that everything will be fine, say your positive affirmations, or you're going to fly." No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. There's something within the bird that knew how to fly. And there's something within the bird that it knew how to fly. And it trusted it enough to come to the edge, lean over, and fall into the call of gravity, knowing there was something within the bird that knew how to be a bird. And I would propose this to you. If the Infinite One is able to imbue that level of intelligence to deal with uncertainty in a bird, do you not think that we would also be imbued with the same intelligence to know how to come to the edge of our uncertainties and metaphorically fly into what's next, to know what we need to do and how to get there? Shake your head like this. Yes, We would. We would. You know, there's a great saying in the Zen. It says, move and the way will open. Move and the way will open. It doesn't say sit there and you're behind and wait and hope. And if the way opens, then move. It says move first and the way will open. Ernest Holmes said it another way. Treat, and move your feet. I mean, prayer needs to have with it action. To faith without actions is dead, as Paul said. So what I've come up with is 3 questions that you can ask yourself on a daily basis, and they are in the book, The Art of Uncertainty, that you can ask yourself on a daily basis that will help you learn how to come to the edge, and help you discern if you are coming to the edge of your uncertainties, and learning how to fly, metaphorically, to take off into what's next in your life. The first question that I would invite you to consider, to ask yourself on a daily basis is, what role does fear play in keeping me stuck where I am? Where in my life am I being stuck rather than moving forward because I'm just flat out frightened? Now, it's very important that we don't demonize fear, because fear is not a bad thing. You know, some of us wouldn't be on the planet today if we hadn't had fear come up and help us reroute the direction we were going. And yet, as we grow, you know, with the boundary line between what to fear and what not to fear gets blurred. And that is the challenge. A lot of us drag childhood fears into adulthood where they don't belong. You know, a child is only born, from what I understand, with 2 basic fears: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Consider that. If that's true, every other fear we have is acquired. And if something is acquired emotionally, I think that we can unlearn it as well. That doesn't mean fear goes away, but it means we learn how to deal with it differently. Yeah. You know, have you ever noticed that when something scary comes up and you're stuck, your mind sends out a reconnaissance patrol into the darkness, you know, which is a natural fear for kids until they learn to transcend it. And in the darkness, a messenger comes back to us and says, don't go that way, man. It's scary out there. You'll lose everything, you know. So fear, have you noticed that if you think about it, I know you all know the acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real, you know. And that's what stops us a lot of times, is the evidence we see in front of us that appears so real that it stops us in our tracks. I got another acronym for you for the word fear that is equally, if not more, real. And that's forget everything and run. Which is what we do sometimes. We forget everything and we run when something scary pops up in front of us. And so if you were to think about the things we run from, there's 3 touchstones to fear that I would invite you to consider real quick. First, understand you can run, but you can't hide. You can run from your fear, but you can't hide. Why is that? Well, your fear is not out there. It's not out there. Your fear is something that lives within, that ascends from within, that is triggered by something out there. So you can run any place you want to go. You can take the barge up the river of denial on many passageways, but when you come back, your fear will always be there waiting for you to take up where it left off. So you can run, but you can't hide. That's the first thing to remember about fear. The second touchstone of fear is that all fear is attached to death. Concern of loss of something. It could be a physical loss, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a life. Could be but fear can equally be the concern of the death of a relationship, the death of a financial status, the death of a career. There's many faces that fear hides behind that you wouldn't think of it as that, but that's what it is. It's always attached to a concern of loss of something. So the next time you're faced with a fear, just stop and look at what's behind that you're concerned about losing. Sometimes it's just the fear of losing control. That's known as anger or worry. So the third touchstone of fear is to realize that in the East they say we must learn to dance with our demons. That means that rather than run from our fear, that we call it in close, and we embrace it, and we invite it to be our teacher, and that we would perhaps visualize pulling it in for a big hug and whisper in our fear's ear, "Oh, master teacher of the moment, Teach me what I need to know so that I can transcend you and move on with my life. That doesn't mean the fear goes away, but it means we rise above it and we see it from a new angle, a new perspective, and then we move on with our lives. How are you breathing? Yeah, I know. So the second question we can ask ourselves on a daily basis is, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to let go of that's keeping me stuck on the edge of the mystery of what's next for me? Sometimes, you don't have to look too far. Everybody on this viewing this morning probably has something in their life that they need to let go of. And in one form or another, we're not always aware of it until we start looking at the question. And one of the ways that you can tell what it is you might need to let go of that you may not be aware that you need to let go of is listen to the stories you tell. Listen to the way you talk when you're not consciously thinking about what you're saying. And you'll continue to tell the same stories over and over and over again throughout the day. And by stories, I mean the things you constantly talk about that are usually in a rut of ain't it bad? Look what he did, look what she did, look at the news, blah, blah, blah. And we continue to talk about the same thing over and over and over again. If you really want to see how true this is, invite someone that you love and loves you, that you trust, to call you on it the next time they hear you telling your story over and over and over again. And you may be amazed. That story is one of the things that's keeping you stuck from moving forward. And the reality is it doesn't always have to be a negative thing that we're talking about that keeps us stuck. The stories we tell. Sometimes it's a very lovely story, but if it keeps us stuck, it keeps us from moving on, then we need to look at it. A good example of this, years ago, 30 years ago or more, I had one of my members when I had a church, came to me, Stan. He was just a lovely old guy. He was 90 years old. And he came to me and he said, I need to talk because I'm really hurting right now. I said, Stan, what's going on? He says, well, I'm 90 years old, and I've been a widower now for 5 years. My beloved wife passed, and I got more good miles on me. I want to get back in the game. Now, there's an optimist. But he said, I have no trouble getting dates, right? 90 years old. He says, but I date them once or twice, and they don't want to see me again, and it's really causing me a lot of pain. Can you help me? He said, will you please come to my house and let me tell you more about it, and I'll make you dinner and we'll talk about it. So I did. I went to his home one evening, and he made dinner for me. And while we were eating, he, no sooner began the conversation with talking about his beloved, past, deceased wife. That's all he talked about. I looked around the house, and I saw pictures of her on all the walls. Her clothes still hung in the closet. He still wore a wedding band. None of these things are bad. Please understand, these are not bad things at all. But if they keep you stuck in the past, they need to be looked at. And I pointed that out to Stan. I said, Stan, what you need to know is that you're giving the universe a sign that you're not available. And the women who you're dating, they see that immediately. And they get the message that you're not available. So take a look around you and see what maybe needs to be let go of, physically if not emotionally. He got it. We did some prayer work that night, and I think he got it because 2 or 3 months later, I saw him walking through the grocery store, true story, walking arm in arm with his fiancée. Yeah, a younger woman, 85 years old. But nonetheless, he came to a point of understanding what he needed to release, as good as it was, to make space to receive something new, a relationship. So it's not always, material things we need to let go of. Sometimes it's emotional things that we need to let go of. So maybe the question we have to ask ourselves on a regular basis is, who would I be if I let go of this, fill in the blank, whatever it is? Who would I be? In Tao Te Ching, there's a great saying. It says, when I let go of who I am, I become who I can be. When I let go of what I have, I receive what I need. Yeah. Take a breath. The third question that we can ask ourselves on a daily basis is is this. Do I take time daily to contemplate the amazing gift that's been bestowed upon me? And am I taking time to acknowledge and give thanks to the giver of the gift? Of course, the gift is what? Life itself. Yeah, life itself. Life is, and we take it for granted, life is such a precious pearl of great price. And we don't stop to think about that until we're faced with uncertainty about perhaps losing something that is attached to our life. There's a lot of great practices we can attach to or practice in regard to looking at this question. Do I take time daily to acknowledge the giver of the gift? This practice is encouraging people to really go into self-inquiry. I learned this from my friend Dwayne Elgin out of his book, The Living Universe. He refers to it as the 3 miracles. And this is a self-inquiry practice. There's 3 miracles, if you think about it. The very first miracle is, if you're willing to think about it, is that anything exists. Wow. The miracle that that the universe exists. You go out at night, look at the stars, look at the planets, look at the sky, look at the sun, look at the moon. It's a miracle that all of this exists. The second miracle is that living things exist. Living things exist that have life force in them, pushing out. And when you become aware that there's life force and everything is pushing out, encouraging it to be more, and we live with the awareness of that, it invites us to step more fully into the mystery. And the third miracle is a profound mystery. And that is the miracle that living things exist that know they exist. That would be you and me. Self-awareness, the most profound gift of all. Do you realize how amazing it is that you can think a thought, experience a feeling, and then step outside of that thought or that feeling and look at it, witness it, observe it, interpret it? Whew. That changes the game. Self-awareness is the most profound miracle of all, other than life itself. And it's when we come to a full awareness of these practices that we realize that every time we look in the mirror, we realize that we're looking at the face of the One, the divinity of the One, looking back at us. That's when we know we've arrived at a true understanding of what it means to live in the mystery of life, to be able to gaze it, not have to figure it out, but just to appreciate it, to be one with it. To be one with it. And that's the point when our being self merges with our doing. Here's doing on the surface of life. Here's our being. And it's when we can merge our being self with our doing self right here, and to become fully aware of bringing our being nature into our doing. That's the most amazing gift of all, to incorporate in our daily lives the awareness of the mystery. Now, that does not mean that the mystery ever stops. What it does mean is that uncertainty will stop in our lives because we will have let go of the need to know the ending of everything. We're willing to look at the universe as expanding at the speed of light, and even it not knows where it's going. So when we merge into that deeper sense of awareness, be here now, one in, as, through, and is the essence of God, what happens is we become part of the mystery, and we behold it with awe and joy and love. And we realize that our being here isn't a mistake, that we're here on purpose. We're on a mission. I love Richard Bach in his book Illusions. He says, here's a test to know if your mission on earth is completed. If you're alive, it's not. Are you alive? Take your pulse beat. Yeah. Okay. So the point is this, you have more to do or you wouldn't be here. But you have to lean into the edge, over the edge of uncertainty to see what that is, or what's calling you to what's next. And I close with a great poem by Guillaume Apollinaire, a great French poet, mystic, social pundit. He wrote, "Come to the edge," he said. They said, "No, we're afraid." "Come to the edge," he said. They came. He pushed them they flew. Come to the edge. There's more for you to do. Take a breath, lean over, and enjoy the view. Peace.